Welcome to Globe Watch with me, Charles Ebune Ed, today from one of the conference halls of the Ministry of External Relations. America to endure must change to preserve America's ideals, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are the words of President Bill Clinton in his first inaugural address back in 1993. And few weeks ago, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the post-Cold War era is clover. Clearly, we are living in a new environment, simply called the New World Order, with the arrival in office of people like Theresa May in the United Kingdom, Donald Trump in the United States, and the situation which is going on in France today. So, what is the common denominator in this New World Order where nationalism and excessive patriotism define the interests of states, individuals, and other actors of the international system? My guest is a peace and conflict analyst with extensive knowledge on terrorism and how the world functions. Dr. Christopher, so welcome to Globe Watch.
Thank you, Mr. Ebune, for inviting me. I'm grateful.
The Dutch and the Austrians have blocked two key populist movements from coming to power recently in Europe. Should we conclude that the populist movement is dead?
I think, first of all, we have to congratulate both countries, but it does not mean that the populist movement in Europe is dead. On the contrary, it is aggravating. It is aggravating very strong in other countries, and it needs a lot to be done in order to fight populism. So it has happened in Austria after a very long struggle, as we know. It has happened in the Netherlands, but it is still a very strong movement, the movement of nationalism, the movement of racism, the movement of our country. We have to protect our country. The protectionism is growing very strong, and we can see what is today happening in the whole of Europe and even in North America. So it is not yet dead. On the contrary, they have to put some check and balances to see that it is put under
Why
control.
do you think that the people in the Netherlands in particular had to say, wait a minute, guild builders cannot govern us? Is it because of the chaos in Washington for the moment? Did that have some electoral psychology on their choice of the new leader?
The very first issue is political awareness. There's a lot of political awareness, so many leftist groups that are doing a lot on the ground to see how to combat some sort of populism, to combat this fanatism, and to combat all these issues. But I think the issue is we have people like that you rightly said, who is working very, very strong to see that he pushes this idea of our nation, our state, and we have to defend it, we have to protect it by all means necessary. The role of Donald Trump in America is very, very strong as well, because when he sees making America great, it's another issue that is building up this type of fanatism, this type of nationalism that we have not seen for quite a very long time. So, however, many people are learning gradually a lesson to see that that is not the right path to go. And in order to do that, it is something that people have to be politically motivated, politically enhanced in order to keep away from populism, but try to see that we are different. There are different people in the world.
What are the constituent elements of this new world order? The main characters, of course, we know them: Putin, Theresa May, Donald Trump, guild builders, and others. Why is this new world order so charming?
I think before we answer this question, we should look at where we are coming from in the world. With the collapse of the Cold War, first of all, we used to have bipolar system. With the bipolar system, it was a very strong issue where you have the North Atlantic Organization and the Warsaw Pact that were fighting against one another. And with time, we came to some sort of, with the collapse of the Cold War, we came to now what is known as the unipolar system. But before then, during the, you have that, you know that...
With the U.S. as the only superpower.
U.S. as the only superpower playing the role as the international police that today it is renouncing, that Donald Trump is renouncing. But with this issue of unipolar system, we saw that many people under the Americans, for example, Donald Trump, is saying that they are being exploited. We are being exploited, and we have to look for another way to go. And we must not work in a conglomerate. We must not work in a, an organization. We can work on our own. We become unilateralists and not isolationists. And in order to do that, we can work with individual countries. So it must not be that we work with European Union or we work with groups of states, but we try to see how we are going to pursue our interests. So by doing this, what is happening? Donald Trump is gradually moving towards countries like Russia, Turkey, and keeping away the old alliance that used to be with Europe, so creating some sort of a new world system. Because when we talk of a new world system, it used to be a system where it was considered that states were coming together, working together, building up agendas together. But Donald Trump is saying that all these things have been happening to the disadvantage to America. And that is why he says, no, we have to create a new world system where there will be some sort of pluralism. And in the pluralism, he wants to see Russia having a position, something like Turkey coming up, and China as well. If you see, the president of China recently said that the challenge of the old system, or the status quo, is what China has been looking for.
Donald Trump says he needs fair treatment in international business. Well, a few days ago, he told Angela Merkel that he is a trader and that he needs fair trade and that the U.S. has been exploited over the years. When you look at the economic records on bilateral trade deficits, he has a point, because if you take a country like Germany, where the trade deficit of the United States of America is $65 billion, he says, well, NATO is an obsolete institution. The next morning, he says that, oh, well, you see, if they pay their contributions, we can work with them. He says NAFTA is a complete disaster, reshaping relationship with Putin, whom he says, this guy I have never seen. If we completely destroy the plus 45 years world we have known, who tends to gain and who tends to lose?
Well, in this issue, America is going after, Donald Trump is going after the American interests. Donald Trump is coming from the school of thought of Niccolo Machiavelli, who says that go after the interest of your state and leave away all these agreements, all the treaties that you have signed. And you see, what he is saying is just in line with Niccolo Machiavelli in The Prince. So, and in reality, what is happening today is he is trying to accuse organizations like NATO. He says NATO has been exploiting America for quite a long time. And he thinks that NATO and the members of NATO will start paying their bills and everything. And not only paying their bills and everything, but they have to as well pay what they have not been paying. So in this particular aspect, he is describing NATO as obsolete, that needs some sort of revision. And at the very time, when he talks of fair business, we should know Donald Trump, or President Donald Trump, is a businessman. He's more of a businessman. And he is bringing the businessman mentality into state mentality.
More of a transactional presidency.
That is it. So exactly.
And not a transformative presidency.
It's something like that. So when he says so, he's seeing how do I make the biggest profit? How can America gain? He's not trying to see how can states work together in building up human rights, fight against climate change that he's even challenging, or try to build up, minority rights, etc., etc. For him,
all those things are of no value.
They're of no value. What he wants now is to see where America can make it gain. So by doing that, America, if he succeeds, because I quite remember, for example, Charles, in one of the Hello Cameroon programs, you said in Africa we have strong presidents, meanwhile in America you have the strong Congress. So he has his dream that he is building up, but the question is it going to pass through the Congress? because the Congress is there to check the powers of the president. If he succeeds, then one, America will be great again, according to his philosophy. Two, Russia will become very strong within Europe because Russia has been, somehow stifled. Three, Turkey as well is going to become very, very strong, and the whole of the European Union is going to face a lot of difficulties.
Well, he described the European Union as basically a vehicle for Germany, adding that I believe others will leave as Britain leaves. But my point of worry is even this. Seeing what is happening in the world today, American historian Anne Applebaum told German newspaper Der Spiegel in an interview saying, quote, "The world order that we have known since the end of the Cold War has been radically transformed." What would be the consequences?
I think that is true. And even Joschka Fischer, which was the former German foreign minister, made a speech as well trying to caution the German state to be careful because the world order is changing, as Applebaum rightly said. And the issue now is what will happen is that states are going to start going after their personal interests or individual interests, the interest of the states as it used to be. It's not going to be what we call collective interest, where states come together and build up an agenda and say, okay, we go in this way. So we are gradually going into some sort of a disaster if it happens in that way, because there will be no central meeting point. Anyway, in international relations...
The flashback is that back in the 1930s, the years between the wars, we had this kind of environment where people say the international system is chaotic. People like Hitler, Benito Mussolini, General Tojo in Japan said that we want to build our countries, and anything international like the League of Nations that Adolf Hitler considered a stab on Germany's back, that can be considered to Donald Trump's expression today that NATO is obsolete. If you have people back in the 18th century, somebody like then British Prime Minister George Kennan, who said that every nation for itself, God for we all, which of course led to the failure of the first attempt to construct the European Union, what they call the European, the Congress system in Europe. The flashback will be a kind of war, right?
Yes. Yeah, which means we are going back to a chaotic situation, because what you have described, if you see in the 30s, that is where we heard what happened in Germany, where about, the Nazi Germany, not the Germany of today, where about 6 million Jews were killed because of this type of chaos. However, came the United Nations organizations, though it has its weaknesses, but I think it is doing a lot, and it will be of greater advantage for the world to have a body like the UN, for the world to work under institutions that can develop laws, that can develop treaties, that can develop, agreements to protect, to defend human rights, to protect minority rights, to see how people can work together, and at the very time to fight for development.
But what you know that these new leaders, call them Theresa May, call them Nigel Farage, call them Donald Trump, call them Putin, call them Xi Jinping, give the names you want to give. They believe that international organizations are a disgrace to the advancement of countries. These people do not want to see international organizations. And you say the United Nations will play a role. Look at the budget of Donald Trump at the State Department. A complete slashing of the budget. The Environmental Protection Agency was cut by 28%, and he says that issues like climate change, minority rights, liberation movements, those are very minute topics that should not even come to discussion.
It is still too very early to judge. He has started an agenda. We don't know how far he is going to go. And the issue is that, true enough, there are certain criticisms that we have to levy on these international organizations, like IMF, World Bank, the UN, etc., etc. But I think the role they are playing to maintain international peace and security is very, very great. I think the fight for better human rights is as well applaudable. I think there are things that they are doing. We should not look at the world from only from the perspective of capitalism, only from the perspective of money, only from the perspective of business. We should look at the world from the perspective of human beings. And if we address the world from the perspective of human beings, then we are going to bring in moral values, which is not what they are preaching. They don't care about values, they care about capitalism. But we have to be careful not to fall in that trend.
China's Xi Jinping says that in this new world order, it is said, quote, history is created by the brave.
Yes. When he says history is created by the brave, I think he made that in Davos, something of the nature.
You're correct.
Yes. So he's trying to...
That reminds me a statement that Benito Mussolini said in the 1930s that it is not good to fold your arms and watch others make history. And that ended in World War II.
Exactly. You are right. All those quotations are very good. But if you follow further what the president of China said, is China wants to take some of the responsibilities of the world. China does not want to be baby-fed. China does not want to be the economic power that China is today, and nobody knows of China. China wants to take some of the responsibilities, and not that the world we should consider the world as a unipolar. The world is let me put it in another word, pluriversal. We talk of universal. I would say the world is pluriversal, and so we should allow other actors of the world to contribute in the development of the world and to contribute in the promotion of human rights. Issues of the world should not just be drawn by one people coming from one culture. They should accept the fact that we have diversity, and with diversity, that is what can let us today develop. So that is what they are trying to challenge. They are challenging this type of universal approach of the whole world as a panacea to address issues happening in different parts of the world. But this is not true today if we look how the world is constituted. The world is made up of different people, different types of people, different cultures, different religion, different so many issues, and we have to look into all these aspects.
This new world environment is that of nationalism. Listen to what one of the key actors says. Putin says patriotism can turn into nationalism. This is a very dangerous tendency. We have to keep this in mind and make sure it does not happen. And he describes himself further down, I am the biggest nationalist in Russia. When you say that, this can lead to things that are bad. And at the same time, you practice such behaviors. Why such a contradiction?
Good. The world is gradually moving to this aspect of pride, of arrogance, of some sort of self-consciousness, and
La France d'abord, in the words of Marie Le Pen.
Yeah, yeah, Front National. She says that, but they are used. This is what we call polarization. They are polarizing, and with this polarization, there are limits because you have what we call checks. You have internal checks and you have international checks. And when they do all these issues, in the end, how do they end? They go and sit on a table and you start realizing the fact that you cannot do all alone. What Russia wants today is Russia wants to become, one, accepted as a world player, two, recognized as a world player, and three, respected as a world player. The same like what Turkey is today doing, and just like, because for quite a very long time, all these countries, or both of these countries, they have been sidelined. And this has made them to say, okay, we are going to build up nationalistic tendencies to fight against all these issues. He went to the Crimea, and he has annexed the eastern part of the Ukraine. Good. And what is happening? Russia is there. So, with this new world order, so many things are going to change. But what I think is we have threats like terrorism, we have threats like intra-conflicts, we have threats like climate change that one person cannot do it alone. We need joint initiatives, in order to fight against all these threats. So even if you have your nationalistic tendencies, there are times that you have to see that we have a global challenge, or we have global challenges that we have to come together and try to fight against these global challenges. What I said is, Donald Trump is setting the pace. You have other countries that are trying to follow, but for sure there will be check and balances, because these are issues that have always been. You should know we have two main principles in international relations. We have the principle of realism
and idealism.
And idealism, and how the we call liberalism as well. Okay. Idealism. So these are the two main principles. It is not today what Donald Trump is doing. It's not today that it started. That is why I quoted Niccolo Machiavelli, who was a diplomat and a historian. He brought up all these issues. So it has always been a rotation. It comes for a while, it goes down, it comes, it goes down, it comes, it goes down. So we have been observing this for quite a long time. If you look, there are even people who did not say something. Why did the Rwanda genocide take place? Because they tell you, we don't have money to spend in Africa, we don't have our personnel or our citizens to go and die in Rwanda, and because before the world realized it, it was already somehow too late, close to about 1 million. What happened as well in Ukraine of recent, because Obama said, okay, what interest do we have there? Why should our soldiers go and die there? Why should we use money there? So the only thing is that Donald Trump has made it clear. He has made it very, very clear. It does not mean that it was not existing in the American politics. It was existing in the American politics, but in a very subtle way.
For many years now, most oppressed communities in most parts of the world, look at the United States, look at Russia, look at Great Britain, look at France, look at the Netherlands, or if you like, the transatlantic community for support. When you have a transatlantic community that is inward looking, where should those people with grievances around the world go to now?
The first thing is for the people to be conscious. In international relations, you have what we call self-help. You help yourself. 2, statism. You try to build your state. And 3, survival. You see how your state can survive. All the states in the world, they have so many problems. And it will be difficult for other states to always leave their problems and come to help you. The first thing is for the state, they should be conscious of the fact that they have to build up their states. And they take what it takes to build up a state. If we see that we are being exploited by foreign powers, we have to look for a way to fight against the foreign power. We should not sit and say, oh, we are waiting for France to come and protect us. We are waiting for Britain to come and protect us, or America. Such a policy, you have to know, in international relations, we don't have any government. There's no government in the international scene. There's anarchy. And so any state is fighting for its survival.
This is what somebody said. For over the years, we have used democracy as a benchmark for a sustained global environment. Democracy is popular because of the illusion of choice and participation it provides. But when you live in a society in which most people's knowledge of the world extends as far as sports, sitcoms, reality shows, and celebrity gossip, democracy becomes a very dangerous idea until people are properly educated and informed instead of indoctrinated to be ignorant, mindless consumers. Democracy is nothing more than a clever tool used by the ruling class to subjugate the rest of us. Calvin Mashiminto in Collective Evolution.
Democracy is an ideology, and we have to see how to democratize democracy. In which democracy are we living? Liberal democracy? Republican democracy? Pluralistic democracy? Or post-democracy? These are the different types of democracies.
Or monarchical democracy, like in Great Britain.
If you can call it democracy. So what I am trying to say is that it is true we have to educate our people.
Or if you like, Banana Republic democracy.
Yeah, exactly. You have to educate our people. We have to empower our people to understand the values. Hey, Mr. Ebune, before the coming of what we call world democracy, we had our traditional democracies, the way we were living. We had our traditional democracies. How can we go back and take our traditional democracy and build up our society?
Cameroonian historian Professor Fanso will call that kola nut democracy, or if you like, you call it diplomacy or whatever name.
Pondi will call it the Palaba democracy, where you sit under the Palaba tree and solve problems.
Okay.
So, these are what we are supposed to do, to understand how is our country set up, what are the structures in our country, and we use it now to see that we have different interests, but how can we bring our different interests to collective interest? I think that is what we need to fight for now. And
by extension, what is good for a South African community in terms
must
of
not be good.
In terms of democracy may not necessarily be good for a Cameroonian audience or a Nigerian audience.
Exactly, you're right. I share your point of view.
Dr. Christopher So, peace and conflict analyst, thank you very much indeed for being guest on Global Watch today.
My pleasure for inviting me. Thank you.
You are welcome.